Good morning, afternoon, evening, and middle of the night. We are going on a ride because we're going on a ride and we're going real far. And we're going on a ride and we're going real far. Yeah, we're going on a ride and we're going real far. Straight into your heart. Straight into your heart. Unfortunately, this is a distant journey for many. And the reality is there's an actual measurement of presence. The way our consciousness works is astonishing. Essentially, a part of you is not here. It's not in your body. You've been tricked into believing that you're in your body, but you're not actually in your body yet. And through the consequences of not being in your body, you don't really know how to think clearly about what it takes to live on Earth. For this to make sense, you really have to embrace the awareness, the recognition that you are a spiritual being living in a body. So it's time to get into your body. It's time to get into your body. Now, today, about halfway through, we're going to do a 1 minute, maybe slightly more, a 1 minute yoga break. It's a sequence of 12 poses I want you to memorize. I want you to memorize these because it's the greatest gift I have to give you. If you remember this, you could use it to attune yourself wherever you are, whether or not you're near a computer with the internet so you can watch a video. I want you to learn this practice so you can take it with you wherever you go. This is a way to align your body, mind, and spirit. And oh my goodness, the consequences of doing so are extreme. We're going to take a step back. Starting in the next year, everything's going to go up a notch in the world, but also here on this channel. We're going to be more disciplined and more precise about what we're asking of you. I'm already having an incredible dance with many of you. People come close, kind of push away. You get pushed away and drawn in by the same force. You are composed of many different intentions, senses of awareness, forms of consciousness, strands of existence that you're creating. When I resonate a stronger presence in one way, everything in you that is aligned with this stronger presence will be magnetized. And yet everything in you that is in opposition to this presence will be repulsed. If you have designated certain limits, like you don't want to go beyond a certain point, you don't have to deal with these contradictions. You can allow some of these contradictions to exist within you as normal. Now it's tense. You experience it as anxiety or stress. But the reality is you have to limit the levels of your power if you maintain too many internal contradictions. You have to. Otherwise, you get too stressed out. So unaware of the consequences of maintaining these contradictions, you effectively sabotage your own potential. Now, I want you to be a little bit scared about this because it's the fear that will motivate you to look more carefully at what's happening. Imagine you were told, you're making $1,000 a day, but you're giving away $900. Like, come on. Do you want to do it like that? No, I mean, maybe you're giving it to the right source, but if you don't even know who you're giving it to, is this the best way? Is this the best way? Now, to be present with how flows work, you have to recognize that when you are creating your reality, you start through the paradigm that you filter everything through. So if you have certain foundational beliefs about what you're capable of, you fuel those beliefs, you make them real, and that generates the palette on which you paint the rest of your reality. So if you started with the premise that you're not capable of certain things, and then you try to convince yourself that you're more capable, you're not going to get very far before you're already doing these internal struggles. Now, internal struggles take on many different forms, but the base level is stress, is tension. And when you live with normal ongoing tensions, this is an immediate sign. Hey, look, you're wasting some of your energy. You've got some of your energy pitted against other energy. If you are going to channel the light of a new way of being, you have to reconcile these internal contradictions to the point where you can allow your flow to be amplified. Now imagine you have two different songs going on at the same time. One of them's going and the other's going boom, bada, boom, boom, boom. Totally different. You keep those songs down, they don't annoy you so much. It's not that big a deal that they don't sound good together. But as soon as you amplify both of them, this is a crucial core basic level lesson you need to comprehend. The reason you're not stronger yet is because you're already nurturing contradictory intentions, and you have to get in there and make choices about who you want to be, what you want to create. Now, I got a little poem for you, and I'd like you to consider paying attention to it. Defy common sense with true nature in you. Leave what you've sown and then harvest your due. Consequences always come through. You better handle your shit, lest your shit handles you. The earth lays it down, never pray to renew. There's always an angel witnessing you. These seasons are spiced, and each moment is new. And the gods all have names, goddesses, and they're riding with you. You have been investing in a hope to create something. Everybody has. You need to learn to appreciate that it's the essence of your investment that matters the most. If you were too strict with how you attempt to seek your dreams, you may miss them. Blinders on, specifically attempting to turn reality into some kind of Amazon game where you get to order exactly what you want, will miss the majority of the best. The best life does not involve playing Amazon with reality, where you just get to, I want this, I want this, I want this. Like, the person winning out there in the world is not functioning this way. We win when we have a dynamic conversation with the world that allows space to recognize that you don't know. You don't know what would be best for you, and you don't want to. It would take so much joy out of your life if you explicitly ordered everything. You would find yourself in a hollow, meaningless reality where just you're numb to what you're surrounded by, even the people you're surrounded by. The dynamic nature of creating reality with others, and explicitly with the spirit of the earth herself, creates space to allow yourself to be witnessed. You are being witnessed. There are always angels watching you. And they see factors that you don't know how to measure. You don't know how to see depth, see magnitude. In order to get yourself into the ability to recognize the true depth and magnitude of the presence you bring, you have to allow others to see it that way first. Now, some people can do it, but mostly these are skills that angels are much better at, and they are more present. Even those of you who do not have anyone near you who can look into you in these ways, you are being witnessed by spiritual guidance. You must believe that. Now, it starts small. It starts with a trickle. And this trickle is very simple. The spiritual guidance says, hey, how about you try out this? Blank, whatever it is. They say, how about you try out this? If you don't do it, they go, guess they're not listening. Like, think about it. Let's imagine I put you in charge of 50,000 people. This is not exactly how it works, but just think about it. I'm going to put you in charge of 50,000 people. I want you to consider this. Yeah, they're all out there. How are you going to apportion your time? How are you going to apportion your attention? The ones who are trying more get more help. It's only rational. You're not going to make it very far as a spiritual guide if you magnetize into the people who are the most dramatically demanding attention. The people who most dramatically demand attention will take too much, and you won't be able to help everybody else. Now, certainly when people are in disasters, they need help. However, the people who are working for it get more help. And their help, the help they get, goes much further. If a spiritual guide can come in and say, hey, I think you should try this, and you actually do it, they know that their effort, their attention, their inspiration, it's gonna work better with you. So you pay attention to this trickle. You're getting these, and at first you don't know how to tell the difference between an instinct, a thought that got into your head from an advertisement, and a form of spiritual guidance. So this is your first priority. Begin to be very, very curious about what is real spiritual guidance. Now, in the process of doing this, you're going to have to make even more decisions. What spiritual guidance are you going to listen to? And so this is where I tell you, I want you to break this into 3 categories. Because as soon as you begin to awaken your third eye, you start to hear. You start to hear. You see. You witness. You sense. We don't have a name for the unique sense of the paranormal reality that the third eye brings. As you begin to sense in this way, all forces are not equal. There are plenty of spiritual beings, presences, that I would not encourage you to follow them. This is one of the most fundamental lessons you need to embrace. Just because they could see you, just because they could talk to you, doesn't mean you should follow them. I walk around all the time, and forces will bust into my reality and start commenting on personal things about me. It's kind of rude, and I respond that way. I'm like, who the hell are you? Why are you talking to me that way? I didn't ask for your opinion. You don't just say hello by busting into me. You have to push back on some spiritual forces this way. You have to recognize they're not all nice. They don't all have your best interests at heart. And some of them think they have your best interests at heart. But your interpretation and their interpretation of best interest may well be different. Be clear. Where you place your respect is where your energy is going to magnetize. And that's why you do the work that Tun Thoth. Now, I'm not just going to be vague. Like, yes, you can choose many different guides. They're all going to have a different way of guiding you. This is a hermetic school. Hermes is an ancient guide of this world. If you look into the extraordinary history of his influence being a part of culture and community, reality changing over time, at a certain point, it's like, hey, sign on, join this. But if you're going to join this, you got to work. They're not going to help everybody equally. Now, it's not favoritism by any measure. They're just measuring. Are you trying? Are you diving deep into yourself? And make no mistake, this is not an analogy to the kind of school that you might know. It's your effort, not necessarily your success. It's your commitment, your desire. Sometimes they help the people who are floundering the most, and the people who are floundering the most are floundering because they're actually listening. And as you listen, sense, see, become aware of forces in a spiritual plane, it changes your reality so dramatically. Think of it this way. Many of you are probably waking up to a desire to be more healthy physically. Anyone who begins to care more about physical health starts to care about diet. Once you start to care about diet, oh, wow. Walk into that grocery store. There are so many things to be concerned about that you didn't used to pay attention to. It was a lot less stressful when you just said, hey, cool, I want that. That tastes good. You will live with more stress because now all of a sudden, you know, you don't want this, you don't want this, you don't want this, and you don't want this. So you're starting to measure, you're starting to filter based on factors you used to ignore. So your life just got more stressful and more confusing, and you can look more insecure. You can hesitate, you will hesitate more. You will falter making clear decisions until you get a clear sense of what is and isn't good for you. In the meantime, you're in this in-between phase where you're having to look at the label all the time. You don't know yet what to trust. You don't know yet what are go-to bastions of a good, healthy diet. This is true spiritually as well. There's this in-between spiritual awareness phase where you're likely going to be excited and confused in so many different directions. You start to tune into this, you get insight. Oh my gosh, you'll start to tune into something, and they'll talk to you all day. They'll give you insight, perspective, dimension, awareness, but who's to say that it's really good for you? Now, there's a certain level of trial and error, for sure. Like, I want you to explore and experiment. I would encourage it. That's how I did it. That's how a lot of people do it. And takes a wise one to learn from their own mistakes. It takes a wiser one still to learn from the mistakes of others. There are certain sources that just work. You tune in with Thoth. You're tuning into not just Thoth. You're tuning into a whole school, a whole community, a whole way of being. It's only one part of the greater Earth story. It's only one part of Earth-attuned forces. There are forces in tune with living on the Earth for a long time that have a vested interest in where this story is going. Kaiyan spirits. And they come in many forms and many wings and many hues and many focuses and many priorities. You're signing on to be a part of something bigger than yourself. When you make this kind of a commitment, you get to stop being confused in a certain way. You get to stop giving credence to every voice, instinct, inspiration that comes across your spiritual awareness because you have focus. You get to filter in relation to your focus. And you create that focus through the key ring. So the key ring is a basic foundational attunement. Now, country music, heavy metal music, folk music, jazz, almost all tune to the same notes. Now, some people play around with this, but they typically don't make that much of a wave in the way music works. No matter what style of music you're using, people are tuning to the same fundamental vibrations. They don't have to. You can tune to a lot of different vibrations, but there are reasons we tune to the vibrations we tune to. So, first level, are you going to join the system as it is, or are you going to try to change and create an alternate approach? Well, spiritually, it isn't quite this simple. Spiritually, there are a lot of different focuses that you can tune to. And they aren't all using the same vibrational notes, so to speak. But there is a way you could trace it down to, are they tuning to the earth or not? People with a healthy spiritual presence are tuning to the earth in a fundamental way, all the way to the point where your brain vibrations, the vibrations of the frequencies of the neurons firing in your brain, tune with the vibrations of the frequencies of the neurons firing in your heart, and they're all in tune with rhythms from the center of the earth. It's pretty remarkable. And even more remarkably, on a certain level, you don't have to do it this way. You can tune to all sorts of other forces that aren't really in tune with the earth. The earth is currently in a phase of making space for a lot of different vibrations. She's doing this on purpose. She has been doing this on purpose. And thus, you can end up connecting with consciousness that has no real commitment to the earth at all. See, here's the incredible truth about this. Incredible truth about this. We're on the threshold of huge revelations. Alien contact, as we know it, is going to be broken open in the next decade. It's already, there are plenty of public hearings. There's so much evidence that it's really difficult to keep it down, but the sheer magnitude of the change is holding us back. So people just can't grasp it yet. So they're just ignoring it, avoiding it. But the reality is there are so many different alien consciousnesses here. Now, at a certain point, the distinction between angel and alien, we're going to have to reconceive our boundaries here. You, by many measures, you are an alien. You just incarnated in a body. And that ends up being a drastic division. Is the presence of consciousness that you're connecting with a consciousness that has ever even incarnated once? Have they incarnated? Have they made that level of commitment to being on Earth? Or are they voyeurs? They here sort of watching and mooching off of your presence. Because the secret truth is there's a power to your density. There's a power to your existence in a human form. It's very, very incredible, this body. This body is an incredible amplification tool. It allows us to generate spiritual momentum in ways you never could when you're just living in a spiritual form. So we can have more influence over spiritual reality when we invite ourselves, when we accept the invitation into material reality. And thus, we can nurture long-term creative goals that you can't really create without the bastion of the material density that you get by living in a body. You have to know your worth. You have to know your worth as you start to open your third eye and connect to other spiritual forms. Because plenty of beings will posture. They'll step right into your mind and they'll posture. They'll act like they know everything because they can tell you a couple things about yourself. It's exhausting. You can do this for years. You could do this for years. You're so excited to find out that it's real that you don't know how to step into the new game. I'm here to teach you how, but understand it comes with commitment. If you don't commit to doing the kind of work that's going to keep you clear, I'm not here to validate your experience. I'm not here to look. One of the most classic things that happens when people are younger, let me put it this way. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, my third eye opened. I started to see the magnitude of spiritual presence and reality here. I started to talk to all sorts of different dimensional beings. And I started to get the guidance to see the way the world can be. But I misinterpreted a lot of it. I misinterpreted the oneness that I was experiencing as I don't even want to negate any element of it. We are this magnificent. We are this beautiful. We are this awesome. But we're not this awesome in the old forms. If you read it through the old forms, you start to think you're the victor over everyone else. You start to develop an ego about who you are in relation to other people. And you essentially take your own access to oneness and accredit yourself as being the winner over all these people who aren't paying attention to oneness. It's actually like playing in the kiddie pool. Now, when you think this way, you're essentially running around trying to generate holistic connection, but through the paradigm of yourself as the creator. You need to join. You need to join. You need to join. You need to join the team. You need to join the joyful awakening that's moving through us. And to do this, you have to agree to be a bearer of light. Welcome here, peoples. It's nice to see you, Martha. It's nice to see you, Sarah. The dirty work. Thank you for being here. That's what we're about, is doing the difficult things. Chris Fleto, odd combo. How are you? Thank you for your music. Thank you for being here. Gene, thank you for being here. We are invited to be a channel of this light. To be a channel of this light, you have to appreciate, first and foremost, that you can't use this to generate a new kind of ego. I mean, you can, and on a certain level, you need to. Don't get me wrong. The concept of ego is a little off. You want a sense of yourself, but please listen. I can help you create your own relationship to this in a form that will involve much less struggle than perhaps you've had in the past. You have to stay humble for a while, because the reality is you're learning to be a channel for light that moves through you, right? So if you start to strictly identify yourself as special and other people as not special, you've already gone off the rails. The truth is, every single person you encounter could be a vessel for the light that moves through them in a way that influences you in exactly the way you need to be influenced. So anyone you come across might put you in your place. Anyone. I, early on in my process, moved to a holistic center. I was working through an old paradigm, and I was wanting, an incredible teacher. And so I found one of the most incredible teachers I could find, and I went and lived there. And I got a job after a little while. At first, I was like a work trade person, and then I got a job. And I went in to sit at my desk for one of the first times. And I saw the teacher, and I changed. I went like, oh, and I straightened my back, and I took a breath, and it was a little old woman who was working in the same office. And I was like, oh, it's just her. Now, this was sort of ridiculous. He was like 6 feet tall. She was like 5'4". How the hell did I? But I saw him. It was very humbling. And I did get the lesson. I had to work to integrate it, but I got it. I should not be treating her like she's much less than him. I was buying into a his story paradigm, where I was looking for a male teacher who could guide me in this dramatic way and official way, and I could be humble and please teach me, oh master. It's a deep archetype. It's been around for a long time, and much gets accomplished in this way. But oh my goodness, if I'm going to put on this bright, humble, open reverence in his presence and then go, oh, hi, it's just you. No. That's not how it works. Anyone could put you in your place, because you're learning to accept the flow of spirit that recognizes that you're always seen. You're always being seen. But the reality is, if you don't allow yourself to believe that, you're less connected. And when you're less connected, you are less seen. So at the end of the day, you have to dig down and decide, do you want to do this? Do you want to join this? Are you willing to open yourself as deeply as you need to open yourself to be witnessed on a regular basis, and to allow a 6-year-old child, a little old woman who seems to not be important, someone who looks, disheveled, dirty, they haven't bathed in days, they're singing out loud while they walk down the street. How are you going to react to all these different people? Are you going to filter them through a paradigm that suggests you're better than them in a certain way, or they can be disregarded? Some of the people who are most fringe are most likely to be able to channel a force unexpectedly. Now, yes, indeed, maybe they're suffering. Maybe they're out of it. Maybe they're not. I'm not suggesting that you just deify every life on the edge, but they might be loose enough that they can pass through spirit that's going to put you in their place. Interesting how I said that. They might be loose enough that they can pass through spirit that will put you in their place. And you'll get to see with their eyes in a perspective that says, oh, wow, they are daily living an awareness that you've disregarded, but it's very special. They are daily recognizing things you don't see, and they're missing from your experience. So even if they are not sort of by some linear model ahead of you, you need to discard the linear model enough to recognize that there are many dimensions of awareness. When I walk down the Commons, it's this paved over 2 blocks where I live. It's paved over so you can walk in the middle and there are stores on every side. I walk down there. I could just broaden my vision and see lots of different people. There are so many different kinds of people, and people are carrying all these different energies. And you can sink down into a form of awareness that tells you much about the mood that they're present in. A lot of people actually have this awareness, and more of them live on the fringe than you might think. They develop instincts about who to avoid, who they can trust, who they can play. They are seeing with eyes that you likely lack. So when you step out into the world, where are you giving your respect? It's important to recognize whether you're stuck in one of these linear models. I'm a good person to filter through the, now I've got this thing going on, right? Like, you could play me as a master. I'm going to be much more effective than many in that role. And I'm going to immediately encourage you to realize that there are severe limitations to this model. The model you need to be in is direct spiritual connection. Now, this was not something that could be taught openly 200 years ago. Human consciousness was not in a place where it would have been wise to be encouraging a mass population to be trying to do this. Truly, it would have been detrimental for too many people to even attempt it. But consciousness has advanced to the point where it is more beneficial to allow this insight to flow, to be publicly available, than it is detrimental. It's really that simple. And as a result, you have to take a deep breath and ask yourself what role you want to play during these changing times. Because the spirit that passes through you will unsettle people. We talk about this in so many different ways. To bear the light that you are being asked to bring into the world is to give people the power to mess up more. You are allowing light to move through you that will amplify everything in someone's experience, everything in someone's spirit that they carry within them. And they will bring to life all their intentions, and some of their intentions will conflict, and they'll stress, and they'll suffer, and they'll go, this sucks. I don't like this. Why did you teach me how to see like this? And you have to be able to say, keep going. And in order to be able to tell others to keep going, you got to do it. You got to do it. You have to keep going through the difficulty. You have to keep going through the anxiety. You have to train yourself not to pray to stop it when it gets difficult. And the best way I know how to do that is to invite you into what it takes to generate the level of spiritual presence that you need. The truth of the matter is, starting with a spiritual practice you engage every other day will make a gigantic difference. And you may have to do much more. You might awaken challenges where you've got to do hours of spiritual practice every day. Now, in truth, I don't encourage more than 2. I've explored in many forms. More than 2 is almost never productive. More than 2 is going to put you in a place where you're essentially avoiding the rest of your life. But up to 2, you might need. Now, some of that needs to be still. Some of that needs to be meditative. And as you learn to be still in the presence of your confusion, in the presence of everything that awakens as spirit flows through you, you're going to start to feel the spirit. You're going to start to feel the spirit in a way that allows you to make much quicker choices. Now, one of the first places I encourage you to choose is through the media you consume. One of the base level practices that you can access is to tune into the thumbnails of videos you might watch and ask yourself what's in that video. Most of you can do this on a level that would probably be very helpful to you. So don't just look at how you've already been making choices, whether it's visual or whether it's mental, whether you have a consistent bias for a certain kind of type of video or source. Watch yourself, watch what pulls you, watch what helps you make your choices, and start to add. Don't contradict what's happening, but start to add a spiritual filter to say, how does this make me feel when I tune into it? And just sit and stare at that thumbnail for a little bit. Let your eyes go a little gentle and breathe. And start to scan yourself. What are you feeling? Learning to feel this flow through you is the difference between getting these trickles, getting these hints of spiritual guidance, and getting this flow that moves through in a way that it has to go somewhere. Now, the reality is you can make a lot of different ways of life work. If you put enough attention into a whole number of goals, you'll be able to make them real. If you put enough attention into it, you can buy yourself that sports car. You can even get yourself that kind of partner. But if you are framed too much by simplistic goals, like purely, not just materialistic, but purely sort of accumulative, like you want to aspire, you want to be in a position in a social class. If you use your energy to win those games, be careful. Because ultimately, any game that's designed to be relative, so the game doesn't really have any meaning unless you are measuring against other people and some of them are losing. If you identify yourself within a system like this, you're making a very big choice. You're going to be surrounded by people like that. Ultimately, every single one of them is willing to sacrifice you. They're willing to sabotage you because the entire game is hierarchical and ultimately only one person can live at the top of that pyramid. So if you're committed to trying to win a game that works that way, understand, at the very least, understand what you're doing. Next. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. If you learn to be much more aware of yourself, you'll find your true spirit doesn't need many of these things. The buzz you get, and make no mistake, you get a spiritual buzz. It's spiritual. You get a spiritual buzz, but it's an externalized spiritual buzz, meaning you're feeding off of a collective lottery. A lot of people are buying in to the belief that this kind of watch and this kind of car equate with wealth, equate with winning. So when you buy into that, you get a kickback. You get a like, oh yeah, I'm winning in this game. It's a real energetic dynamic that you're buying into here. But if it's based in some people losing, some people not meeting the mark, then you're always a little bit paranoid. This is not the light you are being invited to channel. The light you are being invited to channel is whole. It's complete. It's not using anyone as a loser. Now, make no mistake, some people don't make it. Some people do not survive. Some people can't thrive. Some people can't channel it. Some people fall. Some people essentially fall victim to their own inability to make clear choices. That's what it amounts to. Some people fall victim to their own inability to make clear choices. Because when they receive more pure light, everything in them comes to life. When everything in them comes to life, the contradictions fight, and that turmoil affects everyone around them negatively. So even their friends and family want them to be less powerful. Much of this is unconscious, but they're being like, you're so annoying, cut it out. Now, it's a normal reaction to having to deal with stress. But let's be clear. Pure light comes in, pure light amplifies everything in you. The next step is make clear choices. Make clearer choices. Defy common sense with the true nature in you. Now, how do you do it? Learn to feel. This is terrifying. This is legitimately terrifying. It should be terrifying. Because when you start to learn to feel, you start to learn to credit feelings that are not always legitimate. You have to entertain the possibility that your anger has to sit at the table, but you have to restrain it from driving. Now, it's a lot easier to say, every time I get angry, I'm not going to do that because I'm a good person. Much simpler. But the reality is, anger generates a lot of energy. So when you're angry, you purify your feelings in a certain respect. You're going to fire through confusion and drive in a certain direction. Now, this can have extraordinary value if you learn to channel it well. If you simply negate this force, call it bad, you're never going to be fully present with yourself because something in you got angry. But at the same time, that something might have to be told no. So this is not as simple as you just get to go with the flow. This is not as simple as you just get to follow your feelings. It's this incredible in between where you're starting to credit all your feelings as relevant, and you have to hold space as the mediator between all the different forms of awareness that you're bringing to life. It is much more confusing. And it's like what it feels like to go into the grocery store once you start to really care about your nutrition. Now you have to read all the labels. You didn't used to read the labels. Now you start to say, I don't want anything I can't understand. I don't want, then there's all this other list of things. You don't want palm oil. You don't want hydrogenated oils. You don't want sugars in this form, in this form. You need to learn the names of all the different hydrogenated oils and all the different sugars and all the different forms of fatty acids that break down when they're heated in a form that's toxic to you. There's a long list of things you have to stare at. It's not sane to have to make a new decision every single time. It'll drive you crazy. There's something known as decision fatigue. You'll get so exhausted you can't function properly. Many people who start to awaken get very exhausted when they go shopping. And you should, because you should care about what's in your clothes. You should care about what's in the items you buy. The wrong form of plastics are going to break down. You'll end up digesting them. Your kids will end up digesting them. You need to care about these things. But you also need to simplify how you choose. And in the simplification, you start to trust sources. You start to trust bastions. You start to buy some of the same foods all the time. And trust me, they're simpler. They're more natural. They're less changed, less processed, better. And then you start to trust a farm that you find because you really like them. And they're not just growing it without toxins. They're growing what they grow with love. They're not just raising their animals without oils and hormones and closed door, no exposure to light. They're raising them with love and freedom and inspiration, care, compassion. You start to want these things in the food you eat. You start to want these things in the clothes you buy. You want your clothing to be made with love. Well, this applies to your spiritual experience as well. Spiritually, you want to start measuring all these different forms of nutrition, the ingredients in what you take in. And if you don't measure these things, you'll start to recognize how they influence your reality. You'll start to feel stressed more than you used to. Because now you're more spiritually aware. Now you're picking up and you're feeling resonance in a way you didn't used to feel it. You were numb. Now you have this whole dimension that's brought to life. You have to care about all these factors you didn't used to have to care about. We're here to help you get through the in-between of this. Now, I missed my break, but this is a good moment to say, I'm going to do 12 yoga poses with one breath. I want you to memorize this. Chakras in the Key Ring playlist on this channel, there's a 16-minute video that goes through these at greater length. Mountain for the heart. Inhale, exhale. Exhale, inhale. Crown, divine pose. Hands behind the neck, lean back. Sleepwalker for the throat. Lean from here to here. Buddha belly for the sacral. Ragdoll for the nose tip. Chair for the solar plexus. Forward bend for the diamond eye. Centaur for the lungs. Goddess for the root. Ape for the chin. Star for the navel. Squat for the third eye. Mountain. I want you to memorize this flow. This is the key ring. This is what tunes your spirit. You tune your spirit, you commit to tuning your spirit. When you commit to tuning your spirit, you're able to filter the incredible range of sources that come into your experience. I want you to practice thinking about this, even if this hasn't become fully conscious for you yet. Because you are always being influenced by a much wider range of forces than you fully recognize. As you begin to become more aware, they become more prominent, and it becomes more critical that you make clearer decisions. Making clearer decisions has to start from somewhere. What are your standards? The standards we're using here are tuning to Thoth himself. He allows us to make this about him at first, because he's like the tuning model. He's like how you tune your musical instrument. Most instruments are tuned to a frequency. A equals 440. Most instruments are tuned to a frequency. You tune to that one frequency, then you tune all the other notes to that frequency. This is what we're doing with Thoth. And Thoth, as it so happens, is tuned to the earth herself. Now, the good news is there are other ways to do these. Purely focusing on a loving, compassionate, appreciative life will tune your thoughts to your heart and end up resonating in rhythm and harmony with the earth. This will work in many different ways. The advantage to having a specific practice that helps you do this more intentionally is that you have a certain kind of standard. I walk through life constantly connecting with a wide range of spiritual consciousness. All right, fine. I was going to tell you something that I was invited not to tell you. I walk through life communicating with a wide range of spiritual presence, wide range of beings. I always filter. So I'll start to talk to them a little, and then I'll just tune into the temple. Thoth temple is a spiritual place. It's a spiritual resonance more than a place, but it is effective to think of it as a place. As you tune in with the resonance, you feel in relation to anything you experience, and you're able to identify, is this in harmony or not? If it's not in harmony, I just disregard it. Being able to simply disregard a wide range of opportunities, conversations, crucial. You'll get played. You will get played by spiritual forces that don't really have your best interest at heart. And plenty of them want to. They're caring even. There are spiritual forces, spiritual guides that are present and they're caring, but they're not necessarily the guidance you need. You have to have some standard in order to make your decisions. And this is a really good one. So memorize the key ring: heart, crown, throat, sacral, nose tip, solar plexus, diamond eye, lungs, root, chin, navel, right in your belly button, third eye, heart. Memorize that, because just going through that right there will detune you from so many different spiritual forces. More explicitly, they'll detune you from bad moods. They'll detune you from grumpiness. They will detune you from anger. I remember being enraged. And in the process of being enraged, I remembered I could retune. And when I retuned, it all went away because I was connected to something that wanted me to fight for it, but I had not made a conscious, intentional decision to tune in with it. I was sloppy. And I ended up connected to a consciousness that wanted me to stay connected. So I was there ready to battle to stay connected. I hadn't even made an intentional decision. Too many people are making sloppy, unintentional decisions about how you invest your consciousness. You wouldn't do that with money. Very, very few of you would do that with money. Don't do it with your consciousness. It's even more sacred. Now, Luke, I was activated. I was taken to the halls of Amenti. I did not know that's where I was. It was an incredible experience, but I took it as a sort of trip out of time. I had no conscious awareness of so many of the factors that were influencing me. And it activated me to a new way of being that unfolded slowly. So essentially, it exposed me to a new range of spiritual presence as a norm, and that presence gradually changed my mind. And the presence changed my intentions. I didn't want to be a healer before this. I had inadvertently become one. I trained in Reiki at a time when I needed help, so I reached out to a woman who had helped me. And that woman was a healer, and she said, I think you should do a Reiki training. Years later, I had moved through the training. I had practiced enough to pass it, but I didn't think I was going to be a healer. And yet I started having these thoughts that there was a better way to do healing. The same dynamics, the same skill, the same intuition, the same spiritual presence that could help people heal can help people transform and go further intentionally. The same guidance that can help us unravel spiritual contradictions that create disease and sickness, anxieties and depressions. The same dynamics that help us understand these forces can be put to use creating intentional dreams. What if there was a way, a modality of spiritual communication, connection, interpretation that would allow these? So those times when we need to focus on healing, we focus on healing, and then we use the same tools to bring our dreams to life. I became enthralled by this. And I thought of it as me. It can be very daunting stepping deeper into spiritual awareness, and you sort of lose your sense of self. I was not fully capable of realizing that many of my thoughts themselves were being guided at that time. I wasn't ready to think that I didn't have more privacy. As a result, I somewhat misinterpreted what was going on to suggest that I was asking to learn something like this. And then, whoosh, lo and behold, I received the guidance in this spiritual modality. Well, I was being taught to accept it before I even asked. I was being taught how to ask, to want to learn the system that was being offered to me to learn. And now I still have it to teach you. This is what we do here. It is the most incredible gift I could even begin to contemplate. It was well beyond anything I was asking to learn or to share. And it is also multi-leveled, meaning those of you who are living on the fringe, I'll help you as much as I can. And most of the core information for how to explore this is on the channels already. It's also some of the most high-level guidance I can contemplate, meaning there are intricacies to this that demand years of attentiveness and commitment. And these intricacies matter. You can learn to connect with subtle vibrations that shift things in a way that sends incredible ripples through your life. But it takes years of work in many cases, and it's so worth it. So consider coming deeper. First, learn the key ring, then ask questions in relation to those videos, and we'll tell you how to progress. I'm going to tune in, see if I'm missing anything here. Okay, so some intentionality here. I have been responding a little too much to the squeaky wheels on a certain level. Some of you are doing these practices regularly. Many of you are doing these practices regularly. I want to know, if you're doing one of the yoga or meditation practices every other day, and you have been for a couple of weeks, let me know. Tell me, because I want to talk to you more. I want to know more about what you're going through. I want to encourage you to share those things, at least in comments, enough that other people can realize, recognize what happens when you make this kind of a commitment. The work you're doing is, it's the beginning of a life-changing experience that you get to carry forever. We're learning how to channel light onto other people. We're learning how to bring light through us to activate others. The ultimate goal is to help people find their own connection. This is not a future where we're creating lots and lots of intricate, interminable dependencies. The goal is to boost people to the point where they're getting their own direct link straight to spiritual presence from the earth. Once people have that, you're liberated in a way that gives you space to make all sorts of other choices. It is so beautiful to connect to people who are liberated and awakened in this way, because we lose a certain kind of fear. First of all, you lose all loneliness. There's no being alone, not while you're alive. We have so much connection, and we have the ability to generate connection in a way that the majority of your problems become about choosing, as we've been discussing today. You also lose an incredible range of fear, because you have guidance that's with you wherever you're going to go. And once you know how to trust this, you carry it in a way that it just liberates you from a certain kind of concern. You don't have to memorize rules in the same way. You don't have to, argue within yourself to make a whole range of decisions, because you can tune into your spiritual presence and awareness in a way that allows much clearer choices. There's a crossover point when you leave making the majority of your choices with your mind. You're still going to use your mind, but now you're going to use your mind more to filter, more to make sense of why you resonate so much more in one situation than another. When you commit to honoring your resonance, so you have a gut instinct that says, I don't want to do that. And you learn to respect yourself for being this kind of person. You learn to respect yourself for having a gut instinct and you can't even explain it, but you do indeed follow it. When you respect this way of making decisions, you start to go through the grocery store. You can pick up 2 kinds of cheese and you'll know in which one the cows were raped. Do you know many dairies have something they call a rape rack? That's how the cows get pregnant. You don't want food made that way. It really is poison to you, but it becomes more prominent once you learn to feel. And once you learn to feel, you can go into the grocery store and you can pick up 2 kinds of cheese. You know which cheese the cows are living a good life. You can feel it. You can pick up any item in that store and you can feel the resonance of how it will impact you to eat it. I want you to want this. Many of you already have it. Many, many, many of you are already in the in-between where all you got to do is cultivate it. You know enough to be able to pick it up a little. That's all you need. That's all you need. Now you have to do it, all right? Do it. Start making your decisions this way. Pick up 2 things. I cannot tell you enough. You can feel how this is going to go ahead of time. Now start doing this with people. Consider talking to someone. Breathe with it. Contemplate it. You can tune in to the impact it will have to share your consciousness with that person. As a result, you can learn to be very quick. Be like, this person's in a bad mood. It's kind of poisonous to me. I'm going to avoid them today. And you learn to spin around people. There are many, many lessons that are necessary to bring this to life in a way that works, but the first one is always the same. Commit to honoring your ability to pick up on resonance. Honor it. It doesn't mean you're always going to make the right decisions. There's still a lot of work to do to learn how to interpret, filter, understand what's happening, understand what you're picking up on. But it won't get anywhere unless you commit to adding it to what you are. It won't get anywhere if you don't commit to practicing. So practice in this way in many ways. The foundation practice of the meditations is what enables you to do this in your life. When you tune into your chakras and you learn to tune in and ask how they're feeling today and learn from each one and learn how to understand what you're learning when you tune into each one, you're practicing skills that you carry into everything else you do. How you interact with your partner, your friends, your children, the store clerk, what you buy, where you go, what media you consume. These are all coming in through resonances. Your chakras will teach you how to make these decisions, and it is a much better way of life. And as you deal with each of these elements in a way that it makes you more present, it makes you more aware, it makes you more conscious and quick with how you choose, more light moves through you. And you'll be taking care of many more people than you recognize or understand. I invite you to breathe with your heart a little right now. We're about to hop over to the sanctuary where we do a meditation together. This is the basic meditation. There's a 16-minute meditation video. There's a 30-minute meditation video in the Chakras and the Keyring playlist. These are different versions of what we're about to do. So you could do the videos. It's a little more dynamic when we do it in person, and there are questions we can ask afterwards. Thank you. It's good to see you here. I hope to see many of you soon. Much love be with you and your families.